Change of pace now from 2 startups to a very traditional industry. But it doesn't mean that we don't have to undergo data and digital transformation, and that's what I've been brought into Southern Water to do. Learning a lot, talent acquisition, short-term agility is really important, understanding our customers is really important. So I'm going to try and build on those ideas. I've been challenged with 4 questions here. The change processes, how to design touch points into the business, how to transfer skills around the business, and how to collaborate throughout the process of the transformation within the organisation. I'm going to go through a stack of slides here really, really quickly, so forgive me if I talk extremely fast. I view it like this. It's delivering transformation during the cauldron of business as usual. We cannot stop delivering water to our 4.5 million customers and taking all our wastewater away whilst we get our data right. We have to do this intensive care surgery whilst we carry on doing the business. So my background, spent 16 years developing data strategies in fast-moving consumer goods and financial services. I was then the first head of data at the pensions regulator, an executive non-departmental government body. And that was to deliver a data transformation, a risk-based regulator that had to look into its data in real depth to understand how it's going to use its resource. I was then recruited to Southern Water to be their first chief data officer, and as mentioned, published a book last year with Caroline Carruthers. What data do we have? This is the background of the data we have. We have a lot of customer data, 4.5 million customers. We have a huge amount of infrastructure, that's heavy assets in the ground, above ground. We have a lot of contractors to deal with and a lot of investments. So in terms of delivering a data transformation or business transformation driven by data, which is what it really is, we have a huge amount of data to dig into. Why would we want to do this? Why would an organisation as old as Southern Water wish to do this? First is the pressures of regulation. We have to get better at supplying regulatory data more efficiently, more accurately, and with more integrity. And that's true of any regulated industry. So financial services is very much the same. We have to get a competitive edge. Now, it's not necessarily our circumstance, we're a regional monopoly, but why might another organisation wish to do this? Why might Martin wish to get investment from a customer to stop them going somewhere else? So we need to get a competitive edge over our customers. Operational efficiency for us to supply water more efficiently and more effectively. For example, Thames Water, not one of our competitors because we're a monopoly, but they got fined £120 million last week because of their leakage figures. They reported the wrong figures, so regulation and operational inefficiency. They need to get better at managing their leakage and reporting it. And finally, here's a big driver, because everybody else is doing it. I was the first chief data officer in the UK water sector. There's now 2 of us. It's going to spread in the next 18 months. What's the most important steps to deliver this transformation? Well, I would say that. You need a chief data officer. In this room, put your hands up very, very quickly if your organisation has a chief financial officer. Yep. Put your hands down. Put your hands up now if you have a chief data officer. That's where you're all going wrong. Okay? If you have somebody in your organisation who looks after the money, the chief finance officer, which is an important asset, and we all hear that data is the new oil, it is the new important asset of your organisation, why don't you have somebody in your organisation who's solely responsible for it, to exploit it and to manage it? It's just common sense to me, but I would say that. Second, you've got to understand the question. Absolutely right. You have to understand the question the business is asking. Third, get the data. Get the right data. Fourth, manage and govern that data. You've got to make good decisions based on good data. Fifth, that data has to be timely and accessible. And I'll come back to that in a minute. Timely and accessible, that's velocity, variety, veracity, and volume. Agile delivery. Those of us in the data world need to respond to business needs very, very quickly. So you have to develop an agile culture within your organisation or within the data team. And finally, you need a data team. You need a group of people who are going to deliver the insights. And finally, you have to convert those insights into action. In other words, it's all very well for my team to come up with great insights, but then that somehow has to become operational very quickly. And that's why we've moved away from proof of values and proof of concepts into minimum viable products. We don't want to stand something up, have the business say, this is fantastic, and then take it away from them whilst we go away and build it. We want something that we can build and scale rapidly. So the change process for me, in my world, is driven by the data strategy. What does a data strategy look like? It's all about people, processes, and technology. It's the old thing, but I add one more and I stick it right in the center, and that's data. Data strategy has to be aligned with the business goals. There's no point in me doing bells and whistles and smart and clever things if they don't relate to the business goals. If they relate to the business goals, then those two things together adds business value. Very easy for us, and this is just a simple model of something we've used internally. I thought I'd share to you. We have a number of promises. We have a 5-year planning cycle. We're going from 2015 to 2020 at the moment. We have a whole series of promises. So it's very easy for us in the data team to say, what data products are we producing for which parts of the business? If they don't relate to a promise, cut it. Let's stop doing it. It's a waste of time. So our data strategy looks at the data team transformation, it looks at data technology, it looks at the data architecture, it looks at data processes and the business processes. I'm going to talk about the data team transformation in a bit more detail in a minute, I hope. If not, I'll come back to it. I'm struggling to remember what's on the slides. One thing about talking about getting the processes right, the initial steps, here's some of the problems with the initial steps. That open heart surgery I was talking about whilst the business is operating. When I arrived at Southern Water, or at the pensions regulator, or when I was in consultancy, we had to look at the legacy data environment. Who governed the data? Who had ownership of the data? Inevitably, it's sitting in silos. And I think we've seen that over there on the questions. Domain experience about knowledge sits in silos. People don't share. People are extracting their own data from operational technology and doing their own thing. There's no master data management often. And they all think at that stage, data analytics is management information. They've got no idea about business information. They have this aspiration about predictive analytics, or perhaps, but it's a long journey away. Legacy systems, the IT legacy systems, that is a battle for all of us. Shadow IT, because IT hasn't been able to respond to the business, you have a proliferation of shadow IT. The two words I hate the most in the world, and it was mentioned this morning, spreadsheets and Microsoft Access. And I have a saying in my team, whenever you say that word, the second phrase, a data fairy dies at the bottom of the garden. So don't say it. Shadow IT everywhere. I think that we've got, I can't even begin to tell you how many megabytes we've got of shadow IT. Anyway, legacy business processes. Many organizations who haven't started that data transformation yet, their solution to a data problem is to throw bodies at it. Bodies and spreadsheets. And you end up with workarounds, you end up with legacy processes you then have to unpick. And inevitably, that spreadsheet that you want to get the logic out of, somebody's written a huge bit of VP or a big macro in it, was written by Dave. Okay, where's Dave? You've got it. He retired 8 years ago. Okay? You have all the technology suppliers, I apologise. You have multiple suppliers of software and systems. They're all over the place. So you're not just talking to one supplier or one group of suppliers. This is a legacy environment. You've got legacy IT departments who believe that the solution is the answer. You've got legacy transformation processes that deliver projects that never quite finish, huge backlog, never measured the business value, never done a project review. You've got to change that culture. And the threat of existing programs and projects which are IT driven. So when you arrived in Southern Water, to any organisation, they've got their big projects going on with no thought about data. A number of times I've walked into an organisation who said, we're really struggling to close this project down, and it's all around the data migration. They need to take data into their governance and project processes. So at Southern Water, the change process that we've rolled out, I'll just share a few slides hitting some of those things I was asked to talk about, those 4 questions. We devised an immediate data strategy. The purpose of the immediate data strategy is to hit those burning issues, to provide immediate business value very, very quickly, to solve some of the problems that are relatively easy to solve, also to make the board and the executive committee to think that me and my team were worthwhile and they don't just fire us because we've done nothing, because all we've done is sorting out the data management and MDM. We've also delivered a data team transformation. With a piece of research work, we found over 300 people around the business who were managing data in spreadsheets and moving it around. We found 116 of them were spending 50% or more of their time doing that. Multiply that by an average salary of £34,000, you end up spending £6 million a year on spreadsheets. Spreadsheets, when you ask somebody, where did you learn this unique skill? When they were 15 at school, when they weren't really engaged with what they were being taught, and do any of us really want to run our business, our critical business processes on a spreadsheet? So the data team transformation, I identified 74 people around the business who spent 70% of their time or more in data, moved them across and landed them into the data team. So that required me to recruit the right senior structure, decide on what skills we needed to do, and get them into the right place. So the data team transformation, that first process was lift and shift. Let's move people across. Let's have them managed by data professionals rather than lines of business. So we could understand what they did, who they were doing it for, and how they were doing it. So that would then enable us to rationalize what was going on, start using the right tooling, deploy the right technology. And then we could move into optimization, in other words, doing things better. Design touch points. This is an interesting question I was challenged with in those 4 questions. Design touch points. In the immediate data strategy, if you take this pyramid here as the Dickware pyramid, data, information, knowledge and wisdom, what we decided to do was to take golden threads through the business. In other words, work from governing and managing data at the bottom here, right the way through analytics, right out to the top, to some form of business value. And our touch point was to do some of those right the way through to the business to prove you could do it. But rather than doing them scattered across the business, we tried to focus them so they were supporting each other. So we could rapidly, once we learned something here, we could move on to something else in that domain and move forward. So our touch points build together to try and complete the pyramid. Collaboration. This is something that Caroline and I wrote about. The collaboration, I think, is largely driven by the Chief Data Officer. He is, or she is, the senior cheerleader for data, who's got to create the vision across the organisation of what the future is going to look like, and communicate that vision to everybody who's working with data, to everybody in the business who's doing what the business does, supplying water or taking wastewater away, but also to the board and executive team, to keep everybody focused on that vision in the future, through the tough times, through the good times, through the changing times, because it might pivot at times. So communications is one of the skills that a Chief Data Officer has to have. Relationship building with my C-suite peers to get them to understand what we're doing, how we're doing it. It's going to take longer than we thought because this problem, that problem. You have to be a specialist. You have to blend that strategy and tactics all the time. Credibility, passion for data clearly, and a good dose of luck. So that is my answer to collaboration. Finally, you have to collaborate from a data team, regardless of who is the leader of that data team or what the data team looks like. You have to collaborate within the team, because to produce a great piece of data science, you'll need data engineers and data managers. It's a whole team. It's not just the purple squirrels at the far end. They're supported by a huge team. You have to collaborate with the business. You have to understand the business problem, because it's all about adding business value. And you have to collaborate with IT, inevitably. The CDO drives the strategy and the vision. Thank you very much.